Hi, Darren Gabbard here with 345 Auction. How are you? We have a great auction coming up for people who collect psychedelic rock art. It's going on right now, and it will be the first auction for us of 2026. It ends on January 4th, which is a Sunday, and it goes off at 7 p.m. And I'm going to show you a selection of what we have here for this particular auction. And for collectors, I think it will be of interest because it covers a fairly broad length of time from early 1967 until 1970. And it features quite an array of musical acts playing both at the Fillmore Auditorium, the Avalon Ballroom, and a couple of other places in and around San Francisco. But when we're talking about psychedelic posters of the mid-60s in San Francisco, we're talking about two groups. We have Bill Graham with Bill Graham Presents, and then we have a fellow named Chet Helms with another group called the Family Dog. And actually, Bill and Chet started out in the early 60s doing musical promotions together, and then they had split and formed their own companies. Now, Bill was a much better businessman than Chet, but Chet was a typical hippie in San Francisco in the mid-60s. And what he lacked in business acumen, he made up for in his ability to identify and promote talent. He was, in fact, the manager for a long time for Big Brother and the Holding Company, and he was the one who introduced Janis Joplin to Big Brother and the Holding Company. So, there's that. So the 2 years between 66 and 68 was when you had this amazing flourishing explosion, really, of talent both in the music scene and in the art scene. And let us start with a couple. These are the earliest posters that we have. Now these guys, the Big Five, whoops, let me turn that around. The Big Five, Alton, Stanley, Rick, Victor, and Wes, created, I would say, probably 90% of the psychedelic rock posters of the time. There was Bonnie McLean, and she did all of her work, or I think all of her work, for Bill Graham because she was married to Bill. But her stuff, and I'll show that here in just a little bit. I've got that up here. Her stuff was very definite and very recognizable, and she held her own, more than her own, against all of these other more famous artists. Now, this is a Bill Graham Presents, and this one comes from late April in 1967. It was at the Fillmore, and the folks on the bill were the Grateful Dead, which you know, and then there were the Poppers and Collage. And I have no idea who was in those particular bands. No idea at all. But this is a beautiful example of how Wes did his stuff. He was highly influenced by the Art Nouveau period at the turn of the century in Europe. And this represents a lot of that influence. Certainly the naked female form, the snakes, and as well they had this lettering style that caused it to be very difficult to read. And they did that on purpose, actually. They did that so that people would have to stop and look at it. It's very interesting to see to begin with, but when you stopped and you looked at it, your interest would grow. And this was actually kind of running in the face of what graphic artists were supposed to do. They were supposed to make their design clean, easy to read, easy to understand the information. This is the exact opposite. Now, they had one of the primary places that they did these lithographs, and these were done with offset lithography. This is a Family Dog poster here, and I'll get to that here in a second. This was done by Creative Lithography here. But the interesting thing that I really find is the time and the effort and the expense that went into creating these, because these are individual works of art, and they are just astonishing both in their skill with the design itself as well as with the skill of the lithography. This one is very interesting because it has what's called a split fountain technique. I believe that's what it's called, and it has a color gradient that goes from green on the top down to kind of a pink and reddish one on the bottom. And again, this was something that they made for all of their concerts. It's amazing that they would put this time and effort into it. This is one of Wes Wilson's most iconic pieces, and again, it is up for auction. Now this one here, this is the earliest of the family dog that we have in this particular collection. This features the Youngbloods, who we know, and then a group called Blue Cheer, I have no idea, and then Captain Beefheart and his magic band. We know Captain Beefheart, certainly. Now what I find interesting about this, and this was done by a fellow named Ned Lamont, although he goes under the name of Ted Glass. But what I find interesting, just stunning about the printing here, is that it is so crisp and clean. It is offset lithography, and they have to run this thing through a machine, the same machine, with the same design, with a different color or a different time for each different color. And this one, although it doesn't say it, I am almost certain that it came out of the printing company T-Lautrec. And they did a lot of the most beautiful posters that you see in the psychedelic era. And when you look at it under a magnifying glass, it becomes 3D, which is the most amazing thing. It just jumps off the page at you. Anyway, these two are the earliest examples that we have in this particular era. I'll set those off here to the side. Now, while we were in this very creative period between 66 and 68, I would imagine that there was quite a bit of competition between Bill Graham and Family Dog over who had the better looking posters. And I'll tell you why here in just a second. Let's take a look at some Alton Kelly work. This was for the Family Dog, and the Family Dog stuff always had this little Family Dog logo. Wes Wilson actually designed that particular logo. And this one was for a concert in late April of 1968. And the postcards themselves always had this design on the back. Sometimes, and this was a bulk rate postcard. Sometimes it just said place stamp here if it wasn't a bulk post, and sometimes it just had this particular design without the stamp. But this is also another example of the offset lithography. And one of the things that Alton Kelly was known for was to use found art. And while it says it's a gas across the top, the picture itself is a group of soldiers wearing gas masks. So it's somewhat ironic in that respect. And so we have Quicksilver Messenger for this particular gig, the Charlatans, and another group called It's a Beautiful Day. Charlatans and It's a Beautiful Day, I have no idea. But that's the beauty of this, is because this really captures a picture of what was going on at the time in San Francisco. Now here is an example of work from Stanley Miller, who went by the name Mouse, and Rick Griffin. Rick Griffin, he actually died fairly early. I think he was about 47 when he got into a motorcycle accident and died as a result of that accident. But Rick Griffin was well known in the underground comics and the surf comics scene, and he had his very own distinct style. We'll see another one of his pieces here. Stanley Mouse, I have no idea. Well, I guess it was a nickname that he picked up when he was in high school, and it just sort of stuck. And sometimes he actually would sign his stuff as Mouse. This is another Family Dog, and what I love about this particular poster is it does look like a comic strip. And as you read through the comic strip, you see who is on the playbill, where it is, when it is, and where you can buy tickets. It's really a beautiful piece, in not too bad a condition, quite frankly, considering its age. And then here we have, and that was for the Family Dog, and here we have something for Bill Graham. This also features Rick Griffin, but it has Victor Moscoso. And Victor was, I think, one of the only really trained artists within the group. He had a Master's of Fine Arts. He went to, where was it? He went to Cooper's Union. He went to Yale for a while, and then he ended up getting his Master's of Fine Arts at the San Francisco Art Institute. And he taught there, actually, for a while before he became involved in this particular scene. And this features the Sir Douglas Quintet, again, no idea. Iron Butterfly, at least I know them, and another group called Sea Train, and it was from October of 1968. But check this out, the graphics are amazing. I would imagine that Rick did this lower half and that Victor did the lettering. The lettering itself is very stylized, and again, it was meant to, or it was intended to cause you to stop and actually have to read it, as opposed to just scanning it and getting the information. But it is a beautiful piece. This one also has, which is so cool, it also has upcoming gigs at the Fillmore. You know, I think it's called a show bill on the back. And here's the interesting thing. This particular item, not item, the figure is called a trash burner, right in the middle of that. And it features very recognizable Rick Griffin style. It has bold graphics, these eyeballs with the legs on them. And of course, this looks much like the what was it out of Heavy Metal, the animated movie Heavy Metal. It looks like something out of there. And Rick definitely had an influence on the artists who created that Heavy Metal. Now, along with the Big Five, and those guys, the Big Five, Kelly, Miller, Griffin, Moscoso, and Wilson, toward the end of 1967, started their own gig called Berkeley Bonaparte, and they moved Berkeley Bonaparte was, I believe, over on the other side of the San Francisco Bay, and they started selling their own work. They had gotten such a reputation, and people were buying them. It was great. So not only did they freelance for Bill Graham and Chet Helms, but they also had their own gig going on, and some of that work is truly extraordinary. Now, let's take a look at Bonnie McLean. Bonnie was Bill Graham's wife, and she was a talented graphics artist. Let me put these out for you. This one here is the earliest, well, I don't necessarily think that it's the earliest example of her work with Bill, but it's the earliest that we have. And this is actually covers just about 6 weeks. So you can see that she was not only a talented artist, but she was also very prolific. And so with here, the very first one in this particular series, we have Big Brother and the Holding Company, Pink Floyd, and Richie Havens. Holy cow. Oh, boy. Beautiful work. Again, stylized in that psychedelic motif, but definitely Bonnie, not the other guys. This one here has Blue Cheer, a group called Clear Light, no idea, and then the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. I know them. And then over here, this one is really extraordinary because of the strong graphics representation, along with, very modern graphics, along with this Art Nouveau inspired center in the middle. And this features the Chambers Brothers, Siegel Schwall, I have no idea, and then Sunshine Company. Again, I've never heard of them. But her artwork is really outstanding. These are all postcards, and I think for most of them, we actually also have the poster as well, and these are in really good condition themselves. Now, come the middle of 1968, things start to change for the family dog. Again, Chet Helms was a hippie and not really much of a businessman. And right about July of 1968, you can see a complete change in the way they do their concert posters. It goes from stuff like this, where it's beautiful and colorful and highly artistic, to, well, stuff that is not. Let's put it that way. It comes in as being it's all black and white from this point, from July of 1968 until the end of November. That's the time period when you can see it completely stops. And I'm assuming that it was very expensive to put these kinds of posters together. Time consuming and very expensive. They just didn't have the time or the money anymore. It's not to say that they didn't have really interesting designs. This particular design, this is actually the the second to last, the penultimate poster that came from the Avalon Ballroom. I think that Family Dog had a couple of shows after the Avalon closed, but there were 147 posters in the Avalon series. This is number 146. The picture was done by a fellow named Thomas Weir, and the design itself was done by a fellow named Tad. That's T-A-D Hunter, not Tab Hunter. And he signed all of his work professionally with the name San Andreas Fault. So this is actually beautiful. We have both the poster and this postcard, but you'll see that things became very, let's say, monochromatic and more graphical as opposed to artistic. At the exact same time, the Bill Graham posters started to move away from this, and they looked more like this. And I think there must have been a relief on Bill Graham's part because he wasn't having to spend as much money on promoting the shows. This is one, excuse me, that comes from late 1969. And you can see that the intense artwork has dropped off, and now we have some found art, and it's almost more of a cut and paste. Now you have these birds here on each side, and the lettering is supposed to look like birds as well. And it features, well, let's see, on the first night it has Chuck Berry, Buddy Miles, and a group called the Loading Zone. Holy cow. And then on the second night, the second show is Eric Burden and War with Seals and Croft and an opening band called Clover. And yeah, so it's it's a little bit faster, probably cheaper, certainly cheaper, and it's bigger. This is interesting because it's significantly bigger than what you would normally see for these postcards. These postcards were all about the same size. This one is significantly bigger. This one also has upcoming shows in October on the back. Let me show you what some of those shows were. Let's see. We have Eric Burden, of course, and War. We have Van Morrison and Captain Beefheart. Holy cow. Leon Russell and Miles Davis. Oh my God, to have been a fly on the wall there. Mungo Jerry did 3 nights all by themselves, 29th, 30th, and 31st into Halloween. And then coming up in November, Eric Clapton, James Taylor, and Laura Nyro. So all of that is on the back as well. Now, when the Family Dog went down, that wasn't necessarily the end of what Chet Helms was doing in San Francisco. He ended up becoming apparently a very successful art dealer. He has a great eye, of course, for talent. And Bill Graham ended up starting the stadium rock scene. And this is from, when was this? This was late 1969. Rolling Stones, obviously. And again, you can see that there is a difference here in the way these handbills and the posters and the postcards were created. Very graphical, and this is what we would kind of expect to see today. So that period has ended. The psychedelic rock poster period has ended by late 1969. Bill Graham's not doing it anymore, and the Family Dog just doesn't have the chops to put them on anymore. They don't have the money, certainly. So that one little period between, let's say, 24 months between 66 and 68, holy cow, that was wonderful. All of this is coming up for auction on the 4th of January, 7 o'clock. It's a Sunday. If you would like to see all of these pieces, I will put links below the video window and you can go check them out. If you would like to bid on any of this, you will need to, and you haven't bid with 345 auction before, you will need to register. Once you've done that, and it's quick and easy, once you've done that, you can bid in any future auction with us and you're on our books, right? Oh, let's see. This is going to be a well-attended auction. We already have a lot of interest in all of this, and a lot of people watching each and every one of these posters. So if you are going to bid, if you want to bid on this, I wish you luck.